Greetings, my name is Emily and I have an Etsy store called Yesterdaysstash. And the reason it's called Yesterdaysstash is because about 30 some years ago we were dismounting the old home place in my hometown, and this was a home on my father's side, and the latter years of that home had been for spinsters, and many teachers would rent apartments there. And so the home kind of turned into a woman's place, and every drawer was full of all sorts of different kinds of fabrics. It was anything from lace to doilies to linens to trims that had been cut off, old trim, and some handmade yarns and knitting, tatting, all sorts of things. So I brought some of that home, stuck it in a drawer, and all these years I've wondered, what in the world am I going to do with all of this? Well, now's come to the time where I'm either going to have to, I'm going to have to do something with it. So that's about 5 years ago, I discovered junk journals, and that's how I have been utilizing those materials. Additionally, I'm very fortunate that in where we live, in the Triangle of North Carolina, there's this thrift store called the Scrap Exchange. The Scrap Exchange is two huge warehouses of all sorts of things, and the one half of one of the warehouses is all home goods. It's upholstery, fabrics to sew, all sorts of notions, patterns, any kind of scrapbooking material that you would want, old wallpaper samples. Old papers of every sort that different businesses have gone out of business, or a bookstore closes and they take all of their things over there. So the Scrap Exchange is a huge resource, and I have been able to go over there and sort of fit what I already had with some of the products that they sell at next to nothing, very reasonable prices, and have been able to come up with some real interesting layouts for putting together journals. This particular journal here is called Moss for the seam here, or the spine. This came from Scrap Exchange, and what it looks like is something like this. If you were to go to Scrap Exchange, there's all sorts of these kinds of samples, and this one was actually of a leather, naugahyde, pleather, whatever you want to call it, and it worked really good with the color of this Persian rug. There is a magazine series called The Mentor, and I have that in there, and when we get to that page in the book I will explain to you. But the Mentor, this issue that covered Persian rugs, was dated in 1914, but look how vibrant the colors of this was the color, there was like a half a dozen of these rugs, Persian rugs, and with different histories, and it was just really, of course I'm a green kind of person, I really thought this was wonderful that I was able to take these rugs and turn them into the cover of a junk journal. And then I have also put some, there's pink, and then there's this green around here. This is all lace and trim and things of this nature. So the book is actually 68 pages total, front and back 136. And then it also has within it are 42 tags that are detachable. You can take it out and actually make the book flat, because first and foremost, if it's a journal, we want to be able to comfortably write in it. So you could take some of these tags and things out to make the book flatter and more conducive to journaling on. And then you can use these, by detaching them, you can take them and use them in other journals or other things that you might be making. There are 44 full pages of journaling in here. And then I have some smaller pages that I've interspersed, like this one, which I'll tell you about, that is what I call a short page, but could also be used for journaling. So that's the story on this book. This is, to start out with, on the inside cover are a series of tags, and this is actually was a money envelope, and it had this beautiful picture on it, and on the back of it explained it as a scarlet gentian, and it's a drawing by a man that was dated, his last name was Sowerby, and he was dated 1757 to 1822, and this particular painting, I guess, is in the Fitzwilliam Museum in Cambridge, England. This particular picture here, one of the things I found at the scrap exchange and looking, and I've been going there for several years, so I know the place pretty good, and I know, where things are, so I can kind of, zero in on the certain things I'm looking for. And of course, we're always looking for tags. So this particular is a picture called The Dancing Couple. It's by an author by the name of Steen, and it came from the Metropolitan Museum of the Arts. There was all sorts of stacks of these black and white etchings one day when I went in, and it actually looks like it could be, say, a catalog from the Metropolitan, that we have lots of libraries in the area, and that somebody was taking the catalogs and cutting out the pictures and just saving them or putting them aside. So that is that's one of the things that I enjoy putting in these journals is just interesting pictures of art. I also am a huge fan of Tim Holtz, as many of us are, and this paper packet here is wallpaper, and what I did was wallflower. I took this paper here, which I have found I was able to pick up at the scrap exchange, 2 partially filled wallpaper. To me, this is his best. I have several other of his books. I think I have Dapper and Memorandum and several others, but I just really am I like the wallpaper or the wallflower the absolute best. So I've taken these and I have made them into tags. Some I've put some like a little collage on, and I use a lot of yarn. There is so much beautiful yarn in, like you can pick something like this up for 75 cents or something. So I've taken all sorts of different yarn and have included that in on some of the tags. And then here are examples of tags from the Wallflower. This one says Memories. So, and basically what I did was I took the 12 by 12 pages, cut them in half, and then in order to make it fit into this journal, I folded it up and made a pocket out of it, and then just added some washi tape in places. And this is just a little open, and did lots of decorative sewing to add some character to the pages. This is an interesting, this paper here is Cambridge, what I call Cambridge paper. It's kind of your old time, it's what people used to do their Excel files on, and paper, on paper, and in time gone by, that's how we kept up with our travel and our meals and all of this sort of thing. But this is from an old bank. This particular, it's called Credit Limit, and this is what a person who was, say, a loan officer would use. And I also found that at Scrap Exchange, and it was only $5 for this huge big book. It's in terrible shape, but it turned out to be a real friend, because it's just got all of this paper that can be used for journaling on. And some of the pages, granted, are in better shape than others. So, but this would be something really neat to do something with, if I could ever figure it out, but haven't gotten there yet. But that's just an example of how you can take old paper and use it and turn it into something that we can use today in maybe different form. And that's the whole purpose of junk journaling, I think, is to be able to take old used things and reuse them. And that's the whole purpose of the scrap exchange as well. So this is just a little piece of wood that I put on for decoration, and every once in a while I go through magazines and tear out pictures that I like that have an interesting either picture or structure or color or shape, and you know, do a little distress inking, and have really enjoyed coming up with different ways to distress tags and things of that nature. So here's the Mentor book that I was telling. It's actually a magazine. It's like a subscription that you subscribe to the Mentor. And it's a correspondence course. So once every few months, you're going to get a Mentor magazine. And this was back in the early 1900s. So, but I mean, we would do an online course, what we would call an online course. But this one says that it's November of 1914. And this explanation right here came out of the magazine and actually tells the story of the rug that's on the front page. We have lots of universities in this area, and we have lots of libraries because of that. And so most of the library cards that I see in Scrap Exchange are from art. We do have a couple of just art libraries on a couple of campuses. And so these are actually authentic, one of the card catalogs. You know, card catalogs gone digital now. So that I've seen that quite a few people like to do collages on these. So included those, I have a ton of those in my stash. And this is another interesting story where I found an old pilot's log. And what that is it is where in time gone by, pilots would keep, maybe they still do, but it's probably done online now. But they talk about the kind of aircraft they're in, what the conditions of the flight was, and so forth. And really good, solid paper. Some of this I have gone on and tea-dyed, but I have found that these just make really, it's nice. It's a pretty nice quality paper. But here's the pilot's log and how I have been able to convert it into some little journaling spots in the journal. Really interesting collection of washi tape that I found on the internet, and it's called Let's Go. You've probably seen pictures of it, but it's all sorts of well, it's from Hong Kong. No, well, I'm not sure what country it's from. Can't tell by the writing, but it actually is from an Asian country, and they call it masking tape. But this is of castles. This is of coffee. So you get all sorts of different designs in just plain black and white. This is Prague, and that's film. So really interesting ways to embellish or take a plain piece of paper and add something to give it more character. These are more pages from, this is actually, I'm a Jane Austen fan. I love her books, and the Regency period, the Edwardian period, all of those for the Victorian period, the Georgian period of history in England is just something I enjoy reading a lot about. And so this, I have to include a picture of Jane or something Jane Austen. These are more of the Tim Holtz. And this is one of the little paper clips in the Tim Holtz collection that I'm using to keep these together. Just a little item here on a washi tape bag. Lots of positivity here, trying to, another feature of my books is to try to bring some positivity. And so I have taken several different journals and or several different quotes from the internet and turned them into tags. This is just a little anchor. the other side of the paper, and some more positivity here. And this is an interesting, I have a stamp that I put on the back so that people can use them for journaling on. But this distress ink is called Aged Mahogany, and it's kind of become my go-to distress ink. Even find that I use it more than vintage photos, so it's just a good color. This is a key that you can remove and do something with if you like. So a lot of magazines that I have from the turn of the century in late 1800s and early 1900s, one of the best parts is to look at the ads that are in the back of them. And these are a couple of different ads that are in the back that I have converted into tags and put a little sewing around. Over the years, I've wanted to go to England. I've been there a couple of times. I haven't gone nearly enough. One of the things I did have done, is I have collected pictures of the old castles that are in England. This one is Williston Hall, and it was built in the 1580s, and it's in Nottingham, England. And this talks, actually this is, the grounds are just beautiful, and they have like different events and festivals and things there. And then of course on the back I've got I did a napkin collage onto the back of it, keep calm and drink tea. This is a beautiful picture of a lady leaning against a tree that I found in a magazine and converted it into a tag. The same thing here. Just really enjoy collecting pretty items that I run across in various magazines. So I do have a few magazine subscriptions. This particular collage here is attached with seam binding, but it comes from, right now, this is one of my favorite books. It's the Prima, Tales of You and Me, and it has got the most beautiful pink, soft colors, looks very, very English, looks very romantic, looks very memorabilia, and I've been using this paper in quite a few of my journals, as well as for making tags. So that has just been a lot of fun too. And this is a Prima flower here, a piece of crochet, and then just some old burlap. Tried to put lots of hem tape or seam binding that I have added as decoration to make the pockets. And these are two more. This is an example of that old lace that came out of the old home place, and then I just put a design around it on the sewing machine. But lots of lace, lots of fabric in my collection. I always like to include a 4-leaf clover in every book, so they're wishing you good luck there. And here is a bookmark that can be, used throughout the book. Here's another, used some dried flowers and just did a little bit of collaging on it, and some more of the Tim Holtz tags. Some more of what we call the Cambridge paper. This is adding some lace onto a tag. And this is an interesting story. I found this really old beat up book, and it was literally this big. But what was interesting about it is that it was called Letters to a Young Lady. Well, immediately I thought of Jane Austen. And it's actually written by a reverend, and he is writing, it's useful and interesting subjects, and he is writing to a young lady. Her name is Lucy, and throughout the book, Dear Lucy. And I just thought how interesting, because back in Jane Austen's time in the Regions, it was all about manners. And so I have actually had to laminate this in order to keep it together because the pages were so old. Did some stenciling. Here I am determined to use my old books. This is a book called The Last of the Barons, and it was published it says it was first published in 1843, but I have included some of those that you can use for tags or tuck spots in your own journaling adventures. This is the little card, gratification card. It's from a company called gratitudealways.com, and here's a little angel. I had a good time putting some collage. In my last trip to England, I found these beautiful napkins, and I was able to collage them on a card and decorate them up into a tag. I also ran across this really interesting Bargello book that had just very pretty pictures. The book was old, but the pictures were still very vibrant. So I made a bookmark out of the beautiful samples of Bargello. The Scrap Exchange gets these really interesting ATC cards. Here's an example, and on the back it tells when it was made, who made it, and what the title was. And this was called, the title is Crown Tiara. And so it's actually a it's in this little ATC cover, but just as precious as it can be. I go in there, and sometimes they have beautiful ATC cards, and other times they don't have such a good collection, but that's the way it is when you go into a thrift store. At the back of each book, I try to include something that I couldn't get in to the regular book. This here this particular is a tag that has a positive statement that is a pop open, and this it's called Carpe Diem. It's the pop open cards, and it's actually by a company called Compendium, but their actual website is live-inspired.com. They have all sorts of, I actually found this one in a cupcake shop, and this is a building from that's been an old building in England that has been turned into a bed and breakfast or hotel, so included in all of my books are going to be some extra side things. I didn't show you that I used some of the leather pleather and actually attached. I've got some different charms here on the side. So the book is going to be for sale in my Etsy shop. It's going to be called Mossy Green, or Mossy, the Mossy Journal, because of the colors. And thank you for watching, and I look forward to sharing more with you along my junk journal journey.